Hello guys, I hope y'all are doing well. Today I wanted to make a video about a comparison between Tailwind, Bootstrap, and vanilla CSS. Why, you may ask? Due to the fact that there are projects we want to make and we want to make them look good. So that is why we use CSS and anything CSS related. But we may not know where to start or what framework do we really need to use for certain types of projects. For example, a small project, a small little markup or like design for a company to show them what framework do we use, or maybe we want to build a medium-sized project or maybe a large-sized project which we want to maintain and improve over time. What are the best frameworks or things to use for those types of projects or ideas? Well, first, I'm going to start by teaching you guys what is Tailwind CSS and what is Bootstrap. And well, we all know what regular CSS is, so I don't have to go over it. First, Bootstrap, for me, I see it as a component-based framework, which here, as you can see, powerful, extensible, that's a word, damn. And a feature-packed front-end toolkit, build and customize with Sass, utilize pre-built grid system, which is what most of the people use it, and I use it for, which is the grid system, but we'll go over that in a second. And components and bring projects to life with powerful JavaScript plugins. The next one is Tailwind CSS. This one is a utility-first CSS framework, which you can get the little utility things or the utility classes that Tailwind gives for you to make your own set of buttons and so on. So Bootstrap, it is more to call simple things like a button. You don't need to fully utilize all the utilities and all the specifics of CSS or Tailwind CSS to make a button. Rather, here you can just put the button class name and button primary. So as you can see, let's go to the docs, let's search for buttons, and here we have them. And yeah, for you to have this button, you only have to add class button primary and well, button and button primary, and that is it. It will show you the button itself. But for example, if you want to use Tailwind CSS, it is a little bit more complex. As you can see, we are seeing a little bit of a negative issue, which we'll talk about after, which is that when you see this, you see, oh, this looks extremely nice. It's a nice type of article. But as you can see here, you may not really understand what is going on because the utility classes are so much that you don't really understand. You have to have a hard look to really understand what is going on. But let's go to the comparisons and to talk more about this. So let's first start with how I compare them or how you should compare them. Well, I got this idea from their video, which is from Codely TV. They are a programming channel in Spanish, and thankfully Spanish is my native language. So I was able to understand what they did and what they said and what I wanted to add to their video or make a video myself is that they don't mention Bootstrap, but mainly I took from them the different ways they were able to compare Tailwind CSS versus CSS or architecture CSS. That's to say that I'm going to compare them based on 4 things. One is the learning curve, how difficult it is, how understandable it is from a learning standpoint. The second thing is legibility, how easy it is for someone foreign to enter your code and be able to understand what's going on. Third, the maintainability, how are you able to maintain that code over time and how easy it is to work with over time. And the fourth one is scalability, which is connected to maintainability. I think I said it right this time. So yeah, scalability is very attached or very connected to maintainability. We'll go over that in the next moments. So well, first of all, I wanted to make a quick index HTML with everything Tailwind, Bootstrap, and vanilla CSS examples. So what I did, if you want to redo it, I copied a style sheet. As you can see, I'm using SCSS. If you really want to learn SCSS, and that is what mainly people that use vanilla CSS use. They don't just use plain .css, they use SCSS or SAS. You can look up the video I've made here if you really want to learn it in depth and in just like under 45 minutes. And as you can see, they talk about their architecture and so on based on .css. So, well, as you can see, .css, colors, .css, typography, .css. So even them, they use SCSS and they define it as CSS. So yeah, if you're wondering, SCSS, I'll be using it to write, and here are all the styles compiled. You can see that on the video I mentioned before about SAS. Next thing is I'm using Bootstrap 5.2.3. I think it is the latest one or close to the latest one. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah. And the other one is the CDN for Tailwind.css, the regular one. Those are the tools I'll be working with you today. So let's start with learning curve. First, if you're watching this video and you feel like you're not that good, or maybe you haven't learned much CSS already to do the basics, or maybe even do just a little project that you have done with CSS and JavaScript and HTML maybe. If you haven't really practiced those basics, the first thing I will highly recommend you is to learn CSS. Make sure you learn how to style a button. Make sure you learn how to resize an image. Make sure you know how to set things on the center. That is my first recommendation if you're really beginning to get into the styles of CSS or CSS as a whole, including frameworks and so on. That's to say that if you do not know vanilla CSS, the basics of CSS, Bootstrap and Tailwind will be a lot harder to learn, and it will be just an unnecessary waste of your time. So yeah, please, if you haven't learned, learn first vanilla CSS. After learning vanilla CSS, the next one I will highly recommend you to use is Bootstrap. This is due to the fact that Bootstrap will allow you to quickly implement packages or components, as we talked about earlier, of styles. For example, let's say that we want the text on the center. Here we have text center on the class name, and we'll go to our project, which is this one. And well, before getting more in depth into either recommending Tailwind or Bootstrap, first, this is the project, the little thing I made for you guys to see the differences. This part was made with just purely Tailwind CSS. This was made with Bootstrap, and this is this, and this last one was made with vanilla CSS. So my recommendation, if you want to learn and you already know vanilla CSS and you really want to get into a framework, learn Bootstrap. It is very easy, very intuitive, and very quick to use. But the next one to learn, which is the most complicated one in my opinion between Tailwind and Bootstrap, is Tailwind itself, due to the fact that, as you can see, it is way more declarative. You have to really know the classes or the properties of CSS to be able to implement such styles like this one. So when it comes to the learning curve, I would highly suggest you to first learn vanilla CSS, or at least know the basis of vanilla CSS. Then you can learn Bootstrap, and after learning Bootstrap, I would highly suggest you to learn Tailwind.css. But do not stop on Tailwind.css, because in reality, what will be best for you long term is to learn the whole architecture for vanilla CSS. I will show you why this is on Legibility and so on. But yeah, first vanilla CSS, Bootstrap, then the third will be Tailwind, and the fourth, if you really want to get in depth into styles and very good in styling, go back to vanilla CSS and learn variables, learn SAS, learn post CSS, and so on. So now let's get to Legibility. The first one, which is vanilla CSS, it is the easiest to read. As you can see, because it is so declarative, you can put any class you want and then style it on .css or CSS if you're really into that. Even though I don't recommend it, please learn .css, which is easier, and the difference is that you can nest items and do little but really useful things. For example, here I have everything in this custom container. So if I wanted to create a different container, what I will do is just, I don't know, copy and paste this one and create another one, and I can do a whole different container with the same nesting structure. So as you can see here, as soon as you go here and then go to .css, you can really see everything for what it is. You're able to see that it is very easy to read. Actually, you see custom container, so text align. Alright, that is why everything here is on the center. You can see that the title, font weight bold. Alright, this is bold, and this has a font size of 2 rem. So it is a big font size. That there is description, and within the description we can see that there is a span which has a class name, and that appears to be within this, which has a color. So basically it's very easy to read vanilla CSS because you were the one that did vanilla CSS. Even though there could be something negative about very descriptive and very difficult class names or IDs that could be all over the place. For example, if you like to write, I don't know, your class names like this and put an underscore and then put an A, I don't know, suggesting something, people will not be able to see them because it is not best practice. So always try making your class names and everything very organized for the legibility to be nice or to be better than Bootstrap or Tailwind, which we'll get into. The next one is Bootstrap. It is a bit more complicated, but you can really get the point on it. You can see that it is a container. You can see that it is text center. Maybe you don't know this, but this is related to margin top. So MT and PT, which is padding top. That is one of the negatives of Bootstrap, which is it won't let you go further than 5. So you can go 6 or 7 or 8. That is why, as you can see here, Bootstrap, it is very like tied together or very close together within these two elements, within the Tailwind CSS element and the vanilla CSS element. So that is an additional negative that I see with Bootstrap, which is that you're very limited when it comes to the classes. So things like this, if I really want to make the margin of this like more to be a little bit more down, I have to go and set custom styling, which kind of breaks the point of Bootstrap and why you use it. But that is the reason Tailwind comes in handy, because it will let you customize like everything. So the MT, it goes as far as 72, I think. Yeah, as you can see, it moved this the whole way down. So if you go back to 20, we can do this, or tier 10. You know, it's very customizable. It goes further than Bootstrap does. So yeah, but the biggest issue with Tailwind CSS is the legibility. Like, this is decent. You can see things here. You can understand things because this is a very short snippet of code. It is not that big. But for example, for the simple button, for the simple function to be like hover and so on, I had to write this whole code, which when you get to the PY and the PX, it could get confusing. And I have an example on a project that I'm doing with Tailwind CSS, and I'm now seeing the legibility issue. So if you go down here, you can see that this does not looks good. It is a little bit of a mess. It's MV, MD, MV6, PY8, MD, board item center, and let's see the other classes, which is H2, min. Like, it is a mess. If somebody outside of me that doesn't know what I've been working on tries getting into this project, it will be extremely difficult for them. Not like extremely difficult, because this is not an extremely big project. As you can see, all of that styling, all of this is basically this, which is a project I've made for a realtor, and it looks very good actually. Like, Tailwind makes things look good if you know how to make them look good. And as you can see, the whole responsive design is working very well, and the menu and so on is working very well too. So it is actually very good. It is actually very attractive to see Tailwind CSS projects because they have good practices, but the legibility is very difficult. It's very bad over time. That is something I'll explain to you guys on the maintainability issues that Tailwind presents. So now we're going to talk about maintainability. I'll say right away that the best one is vanilla CSS, because as I've shown you guys in this last video, let me show you on this specific project I have, which is this one. And here I have a whole styles folder. Let me close everything here so it is not confusing. I have a whole style folder which have both CSS. You don't need to worry about that, but you can worry about SCSS, which is here what I have everything. For example, if I wanted to get to home.jsx and see this component, maybe I want to change the styles of just the home. I can choose the home.css, and those shortcuts, you can learn them on this shortcuts video that I've made. But as you can see here, I have everything related to home.css. So it is very easy to maintain because the styles are so well organized. I'm not using the 7.1 SAS structure on this specific project, but I'm using it on other projects. But as you can see here, basically that having at least a little file structure like this, which has base, which has the animations, has the color palette, has the media queries on just one specifically, this is not good actually for the 7.1. So don't just make a media queries.scss. But for the moment, if I want to, I don't know, change something on home, I can do it here, and it is very organized. People can search here for home and they can see that there are two different files, one for styling of the home and one for the home itself. It is very easy to maintain. The next one is Bootstrap. Bootstrap, it is decent because it is understandable, but from what I've seen on my personal project, which is the one that you saw right here, I'm combining Bootstrap and vanilla.css or SCSS, as you can see. I have container, which is the class name. I have row. Here I'm using the grid system, I think. So there is a combination of both. Like for example here, fs2 and font with bold. This comes straight from Bootstrap. This is not vanilla.css, even though I have a home.css file. But essentially, this is quite a bit confusing in my opinion. As you can see, I have an ID here and I have a class name here, and then I have some more styling here. Like for maintainability, it is not that good in my opinion because it is a combination of both. I think that the best thing to do is just either use vanilla CSS, Tailwind.css, or Bootstrap. Not to mix them because it will create a mess like this one, which is some declarative styling, but some specific styling that you can create for example, within this SCSS. That's about it with Bootstrap. And well, with Tailwind, it is actually very the same as Legibility on Tailwind. Because for someone else to get into the project, as I've said before, or even yourself, if I come back to this project 2 months ago and I haven't worked within it or worked with the Tailwind styles from this project, I'll probably get very lost and I will have to really have a hard look on everything to see where everything is located or what everything does exactly. So yeah, Tailwind is not good at all for maintainability, and I will let you guys know why I chose Tailwind for this project so you guys can understand all of those negatives. And then the final one before we go into the conclusion. So scalability is attached to maintainability because you will be adding more projects and adding more items, adding more components, and so on. You want to scale your project. It is not that bad actually to scale our project if we are making other components and so on. If you're a beginner and you're just using index.html, then yes, scalability will be very bad. But that is because writing everything on an index.html is very bad. So use React or something component based. But I wouldn't say that scalability is not that bad within Tailwind and Bootstrap. But it is not the best as, for example, vanilla CSS and having a file structure that is made of different components and different parts of the page, like this one, which has the animations and so on. If I, for example, wanted to add an animation right here, we'll have a to-do here. I can just quickly add it here, or well, what I showed you guys in the shortcuts. I can just search for it. If I wanted to add something on home, I can do just home.scss and add it here. Or if I wanted to add something on the contact, I can just add it here. And I can just see everything very clearly. I can see LinkedIn, variable color, and so on. So when it comes to scalability, yes, the best is to use vanilla.css. But if you're working on a small to mid-sized project, that is where I recommend frameworks for. So let's get to the conclusion to show you guys when to use and when not to use frameworks or vanilla.css. So the conclusion, which is why the actual flying fuck do I still use Bootstrap and Tailwind for my projects, knowing that vanilla CSS or post CSS or Sass is objectively better for projects. The reason is that Bootstrap is a very good framework if you want to make little projects, even medium-sized projects, things that you can make quickly, and you don't need to create a whole structure for the project itself. And why do I use Tailwind? Because it is a very quick, very nice looking framework for medium to large size projects. Mainly medium, because when we're getting to the large size projects, you will be able to see the difficulty of legibility and so on. So I would rather just say that it is better to use a medium sized project on projects that just have 2-3 pages at most. But vanilla CSS or SCSS, it is better if you're working on a serious, large project you are projecting to keep working on for years or months. Because if you are intending to create a project you want to improve over the years, you will see the cracks and holes with CSS frameworks such as Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap. Like, you will really notice now, well, on this project, on the post item project, I'm noticing the fact that this is illegible. Like, yes, it looks good and so on, but I don't know how I'll be able to change all of these styles and understand them one by one to make a change in them. So this, which is turning into a large size project, I'm now seeing that this will be complicated to figure out in the future and actually change. So yeah, I'm speaking from experience right here. And Bootstrap, I'm starting to think on ditching Bootstrap as a whole due to the fact that I'm mainly just using the grid system, which I can make a grid system myself here too. It is not that complicated, and it will be better because actually Bootstrap has a big issue, which is that as soon as you download React Bootstrap or just the CDN of Bootstrap, it will load all of the styling on your page, which that is very bad for performance. The good thing about Tailwind is that it will only use and it will only render and it will only load the styles you are putting in, you are actually using. So when it comes to actual performance and so on, Tailwind is very good at that. Bootstrap is not. It is just a big performance hit to the page itself. Let's get this straight. For large to medium-sized projects, the best thing you can use and the quickest deployment you can have for styling is Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap.css. If you want to make a large project you intend on working on for months or maybe years or maybe a company itself, the best thing you can do for yourself, for the company, for the client, and everyone is make a structured SCSS or CSS architecture around the project. It is not that hard, actually. You can check out the video I told you guys before about SCSS, and you will see the 7-1 structure and so on. And you can just quickly apply it. You can just create a styles folder and have everything on an SCSS folder. That is the way I like to do it. I know some people that they like to have on source. They like to have SCSS separately and CSS regularly for rendering. But it is very easy. I highly suggest you to invest on learning Sass or learning Post CSS if you really want to scale your project and make really large projects legible, maintainable, and so on. But yeah, that is my conclusion. You guys can let me know in the description if you have any opinion on this, because I'm definitely here to learn. I'm not a CSS expert, but this is what I've noticed with my experience, that with this project that I'm currently working on, it is looking very hard to actually work with, due to the fact that it has gotten so complicated and so specific that adding more cells will just do bad to the page. And on this other, well, my React portfolio, you can see that basically I'm just using SCSS and just a little bit of Bootstrap. So yeah, I don't know if that's worth adding. But yeah, that was the video for today. If you guys have any question or anything, you can guys let me know in the description, and I'm more than open to hear other suggestions. I'll see y'all the next time, and take care.